And so we thought at this time we would go and we would call the amazing Clark Judge. And his breakdown is always unbelievable. There is Clark Judge right there. Welcome to rawmike.richards.com, Clark.
How are you?
Well, you know what? Sometimes I think the Thursday nighters and the Monday nighters, there was always that risk that the games are a little flat. Well, I'll tell you. With Trubisky, a couple of, fake plays, some trick plays. That was a pretty entertaining game. So I got to ask you, Clark, looking at Trubisky in that performance, I thought he looked pretty poised. I mean, he's kind of thrown in there. I didn't know what to expect. But all in all, if you're a Chicago Bears fan, I thought he looked pretty good.
Well, he looked better than Mike Glennon, and that's why you're relieved. You go, well, actually, there might be something here to look forward to. There is a future, but it's one game. They lost that game. They lost it on an interception. So you take the good with the bad. He's going to make some mistakes, but at least they were interesting. At least in the second half, I'd say they were interesting. The first half, not so much. 3-2. The only thing we were missing there was a third period goal. It really was, to me, the first half was flat on both sides, especially Minnesota. But then you saw in the second half, the fake punt, the 2-point conversion. Those are things that John Fox doesn't do. He's very conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Known John for years, and that's not like him. He deviated from the norm. That's if you're a Chicago Bears fan, because you go, wow. I mean, there's a great unknown here. With Glennon, you know what you get, all right? And what you get is a backup quarterback who can spot start and win you a game here or there. With this guy, there is no ceiling, and you know that we thought so much of him. Our team thought so much of him that they made him the second pick in the draft. We must have something there. And he showed glimpses of that last night, especially to me outside of the pocket. I thought he made plays outside of the pocket. Now, let's just see what happens. I mean, it's one game. Let's see how we assess it after 1 year, 2 years. But he's better than what they had.
Yeah.
Well, for Case Keenum to come in there, and again, for a lot of people who maybe didn't, watch the University of Houston all that often, probably are unaware of, that he was a homegrown guy. He's a Texas guy. He goes to the Texans. There was a lot of hope that it would be that great story, and it just didn't turn out that way. But that's not to say that there probably aren't skills in there somewhere. And as you know, Clark, in the NFL, sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's that coaching staff that works with you. And I'm not saying he's going to the Hall of Fame or all of a sudden he's an elite quarterback, but he does have a certain skill set that, I was kind of happy for the kid because I think he, I'm not one of these guys that likes to see those fail, and I thought it was a nice job for him to come in, if you want to put it, relief. So what is the status right now looking at that quarterback situation in Minnesota?
Well, it's Bradford's job if he's healthy, but that's a big if. It always has been during his career. The one caveat you've got with Sam Bradford is he always gets hurt. I mean, you say, well, he's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of talent, but he's always hurt. No matter whether it's Philadelphia, the Rams here, somehow he's going to find his way to the sidelines. And so when that story came out after the first game this year, where he had the game of his life, and you go, wow, Sam Bradford, why he looks so comfortable here. He's got an injury. It may keep him out of the next game. I thought, oh no, here we go again. And it turns out it was a prolonged injury, and it affected him again last night. He played one half, but he was very poor and seemed to affect him. That's who Sam Bradford is, unfortunately, I think that's who he always will be. He's a guy who can give you some great games every now and then. Look like the guy at Oklahoma who was terrific and accurate, but by and large, he's a middle of the pack quarterback who gets hurt far too often. But the fact of the matter is, when he's good, he's better, and to me, much better than Case Keenum. So that's why he's going to be number one on that depth chart. At some point, they're going to have to make a decision there, because you can't keep going with a guy who's going to be playing 6, 8, 10 games a year. You've got to find somebody else. I don't know that Case Keenum's the answer. Looked good in the second half last night. Looked good against Tampa Bay, but I've seen games where he's completely the opposite, and he can't get it going. He has some skill, but it's got to be consistency.
And then from what we know, just staying on Minnesota for a second, Teddy Bridgewater is supposed to be on the practice field probably in the next 7 days. That kind of makes the water a little bit murkier.
Yeah, it does. I don't know what you're going to get from him, and that's an interesting story, and one that is going to need some explaining at some point, because he's been out a long time. I don't know what his future is. I don't know what he would give you coming back in the middle of the season, especially after missing last year, missing training camp. I'm not sure what you'd get from him, and I don't know where they are in terms of thinking, one time he was the guy, not only of the future, of the present. Where is he now? I mean, is Bradford the guy now? Because Bradford, I don't know where they stand with him either. They thought a lot of him after last year. They thought a lot of him after the first game. But as I said, that the only consistency about Sam Bradford are the injuries. And, this game's not so much about ability as it is about availability.
We want to look at Sunday and what happened, and I'm kind of curious on your takes about the Pittsburgh Steelers and a very uncharacteristic offense of Ben Roethlisberger throwing 5 INTs, losing to a Jacksonville Jaguars that are obviously they're upstart and they have some nice pieces, but they're not supposed to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. What has happened in Pittsburgh right now, Clark?
Well, they're just not firing on offense for whatever reason. Le'Veon Bell staying out of training camp, I think, hurt them. There seems to be some inner turmoil there. Antonio Brown certainly revealed it on the sidelines a week and a half ago. And Roethlisberger, I thought, seemed very tense in the locker room in that interview after the game. When he said, maybe I don't have it anymore, I don't put any stock in that. There's not a player out there who's going to tell you that. He says, maybe I don't have it anymore. He's going to walk away the next day. Ben Roethlisberger's not walking away. I think he said that in response to questions he really either didn't like, or he just went, okay, I've got to answer these questions. I'll give you it. What do you want? You want me to say maybe I don't have it anymore? Okay, maybe I don't. He knows he does. Those games happen. There was a game, and I think it was Jacksonville several years ago, came into Pittsburgh, and they put up barely over 100 yards in offense, and they still won. It happens. I mean, you're going to have stinkers like that. There are not many of those in Ben Roethlisberger's career, fortunately. He is a guy who's a special quarterback. He had a bad day, but they need to get that thing figured out. And I would say, rather than go into those three, I'd go to Todd Haley and say, let's open this thing up, throw the ball down the field more. Got to be more explosive. We've got explosive players here. Let's try to open this thing up more. And I think part of that interview that you saw through Ben Roethlisberger's frustrations is his frustration with the offense in general. He's throwing picks. They're not getting the points that they should. They're averaging just under 20 a game. That's a much better offense with those three guys on the field, but it's not clicking. And he's frustrated. They're frustrated. They need to get this thing straightened out. And they've got the explosive players. Let's see some explosive plays.
We're in conversation with Clark Judge here on rawmikerichards.com, brought to you by DKI. And, there was a bunch of games I thought where I was really going to see some teams tested as to, kind of where they're going. Again, we're not going to get too excited. It's not halfway through the season. But I really thought, teams like the Panthers, I thought the teams like the Bengals, and quite honestly, the performance by Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay and Dallas, those were 3 games that sort of pointed to me to maybe where they're going to go from here. And I'll start with the Panthers game. I mean, this is a very good Lions team, I felt, and they went in there. They were the better team the entire game, Clark.
Yeah, they were. I thought you were going to ask me about the Montreal Canadiens. Thank goodness, thank God. Now, anyway,
that's coming.
I don't know where they're going, but hopefully we tried the fast starts in the past couple of years, didn't work out, so we're trying the slow starts this year. The Panthers look good. Newton looks pretty good. They beat a good team in Detroit. I didn't think it would happen. I thought Detroit would beat them, but Carolina won. Now, I mean, even drops the ball in the end zone. That would have been 7 points turned into a field goal instead. I think had Detroit had the ball at the end, they would have scored because all of a sudden Matt Stafford's looking like Matt Stafford again. They're coming back up. The fact of the matter is Carolina won the game. That's all that matters. They're now on top of that division. They are going to be the threat to Atlanta in that division. And Atlanta should be worried about them because Cam Newton seems to be playing now as he did 2 years ago. If he just would play and keep his mouth shut, he'd be fine. But he is doing the job on the field. The defense is good. They've got a legitimate running game. They've got weapons galore around it with the addition of McCaffrey. Benjamin's there. Funston. They've got so many good players now that I think it shows that this is a versatile team, and they can beat you in a lot of different ways. Defense, offense. Doesn't have to be the quarterback running as much. Still got Stewart in there. McCaffrey can do a lot of things. It's an interesting team, and they are playing well, and I do think that was a significant victory because, as you mentioned, the opponent was really good. I think Detroit's really good.
Clark Judge joins us from the Talk of Fame Network here on Raw Mike Richards. Jay Cutler and the Miami Dolphins, they actually win this weekend. But, man, when you look at Cutler's performance this season, are they starting to wonder, is it time for Matt Moore to replace him? Are they second-guessing exactly what they have in Cutler or what they thought they had in Cutler? Because he hasn't really come through, has he?
No, he hasn't. But they're not starting to wonder. I am starting to wonder. You're starting to wonder. I mean, I think a lot of people are going, the heck, this guy's supposed to be a system fit? Maybe the system doesn't fit him at all. Maybe he doesn't fit the system. Maybe he's just not that good. When Moore stepped in at the end of last year, I thought he actually gave him something that's missing now. They just are a mess. Offensively, they can't run the ball. They're not throwing it very well. They were supposed to have head coach in there, Adam Gase, who was going to, rejuvenate and energize that offense. And with Tannehill, it seemed to be the case. Not the case now with Jay Cutler. And I don't know where they're going. I mean, yeah, they won a game. That's the good news. The bad news is they've scored 2 offensive touchdowns in 3 games, including 1 on the last play of the game against the Jets, for God's sake. So they're not a very good team. What do you do with the quarterback? They know, again, what they've got in Matt Moore, but the head coach feels more comfortable with Cutler. And you would, too, honestly, if you watch them practice. You guys got all the ability in the world, but something's just not working out. And there are those intangibles that I never liked about Cutler from the beginning of his career. Went out and sat down with him in Denver. I didn't like him. I just said, there's something wrong with this guy. It's leadership. He's not a leader. And I think he's demonstrated that over the years. And here, something's not working. Would they make a change? I would think at some point they would, but that coach is not going to make it, because you saw what he said last week. Really burns me when people criticize this guy. He's very defensive about Jay Cutler. Somehow, some way, he's going to make him fit that system. I don't know that's going to happen. I really don't know that's going to happen to me. He's had plenty of time.
Can we sort of look at the Rooney family, what's going to happen with the Giants? They're now 0-5. We saw what happened to Beckham, depending on what the injury status is. But at some point, I think teams do have a cycle. Is this the end of the cycle?
You mean in terms of the
players?
Front office, or
even Eli is their quarterback.
It's a good question. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. The Maras are loath to make dramatic changes. The consistency is great about them. That's what I love about them, and people like them and the Rooneys, and obviously Steve Bisciotti down in Baltimore, and Mike Brown in Cincinnati. There's consistency there in those franchises. And here, I think you look at what's going on, you say, this was supposed to be the year we were going to challenge for the top. This was, because we got a great season last year. We were a playoff team last year. The defense really turned around. We got Eli putting the ball in the end zone. But he looks old. He doesn't look very effective. The offensive line stinks. You can't run the ball. You just lost your receivers. Defense isn't any good anymore. They can't make stops. They failed to protect leads 5 times in the last 3 games in the fourth quarter. They can't protect leads. So where do you go? Where do you go? I look at that schedule. I go, where's their win? You just lost to San Diego at home. San Diego, the Chargers. Sorry, the Los Angeles Chargers. Old habits die hard. But you just lost to the Chargers at home. And so where's their win? And I don't know what the answer is, guys, because people are going to say, go ahead, throw on us. Who are you going to throw it to? OBJ, he's gone. Marshall, he's gone. Shepard, he's out. Who are you going to throw the ball to? Who are you going to run the ball with? How are you going to stop? Because your defense can't stop anyone now. There are going to be changes after the year, and I think it probably is going to start with the GM. That's Jerry Reese. He didn't do anything with the offensive line in the offseason, brought back the same 5 guys. They couldn't protect Eli last year. It was an issue. They still were good. They were 11-5, I think, but still were good. But he needed to make some changes there. He didn't. I think he's the first guy to go. I think the head coach. I'm not a big Ben McAdoo fan, but I think they're going to give him a longer leash for good reason. He took to the playoffs last year. Not going to be there this year. I think he'll be safe, but there will be changes. I think it starts with the GM. But it's funny. For the season, what did we say? Yeah. There's going to be a team in New York. There's a team in New York that's the bottom favorite feeder. They'll have number 1 pick in the draft. We just didn't know it would be the Jets. Wouldn't be the Jets.
Well, Clark, you brought up the whole Montreal Canadiens thing. I wasn't going to talk about it. I didn't want to be rude.
Don't, please.
You brought it up. What is going to happen there? As you said, the tremendous starts. Maybe they're playing possum. Is that what they're doing?
Well, yeah, I don't know. Who knows? I don't pay much attention to after the last 2 years. The last 2 years, it was, God, look at them. There's nobody better in the first 10 games, 11 games. But the season's end. There 1 year there were far too many teams that were better, and not too many who were worse. But I don't know. Last year I thought they had a real shot, and then they'd go to the Rangers and lose in 6, I guess it was. But I look at this year, and they've got a lot of young players, and bringing Durant and seeing how they're trying to mesh. I think there's a little bit of a learning curve here. I saw him in preseason. Actually, I liked what I saw, because I thought, boy, there's some vitality, some youth. The back end is different. It's so completely different. Not to see Markov back there, boy, that's weird. Yeah. And you still got Carey Price, but I'll be very honest with you. I thought in the playoffs last year, I was disappointed with him, because he was outplayed by Lundqvist, who had not had a good year, and you needed to have a great series. Lundqvist had a great series. I thought Price had a good series, not a great series, and I'm so used to him being a great goaltender. But he needs to be a great goaltender again, because they're going to – honestly, I think Toronto's a fascinating team to watch. I think Toronto's going to be fun to watch. But, I like the fact that we're going to try something different this year. Let's see if we can have a slow start and listen to the tortoise and the hare tale and go, you know what? We learned a lesson from there.
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Hey, Clark, thanks so much for joining us here this morning. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend.
No Yankees questions from
Nope.
Blue Jays fans.
Nope.
Wow.
No.
Okay.
Well, and
Okay.
I got to be honest. Like, so the whole, that conversation I heard about Joe Girardi, like,
Right.
not being in New York, sometimes. So again, it's sort of the outside looking in. But I've always liked the guy because of his intensity, because of his heart on his sleeve. Sort of he's very emotional after that game, and the question about whether to challenge or not challenge. But I think he keeps. I mean, questions about keeping his job. He should keep his job, should he not?
You're talking to a Yankee fan who did live in New York for 17 years, and I'm in the New York area. And I'm not a Girardi fan. I think he's a good manager. I don't think he's a special manager. I think he manages by the book. Some people call him Joey Loose Leafs because he's so predetermined in his moves. You can just tell exactly what he's going to do. And I'll sit there. My wife goes, "Turn the TV off. I'm tired of you yelling at it." And that night, to me, the worst move wasn't the non-challenge. That was bad. It was, why would he take Sabathia out? I mean, when he took Sabathia, I said, "What are you doing? How can you take him out? He's giving you a break. You're up 8-3. You want to rest the bullpen. He's retired 12 of the previous 13 Why would you go into a bullpen that needs to be rested? Makes no sense." Well, of course, then when that challenge came out, or the non-challenge, that was bad enough. And when the game was over, I said I want to go to the Yes Network because I really like the way those guys dissect the game. And they had John Flaherty, who was very good, Jack Curry, who's very good, and they were talking about it. And Flaherty was saying, "Listen, I was a catcher, caught for a lot of years, caught for the Yankees, Red Sox, numbers of teams." And he said, when the ball hits the bat, there's a different sound. So he said, that when that ball hit the bat and Sanchez was screaming to the dugout, he knew there was a different sound. He knew he'd caught strike three. And just like you've got to go to the replay. And he said, so Girardi's talking about, as a former catcher, I don't want to break the rhythm and that sort of thing. He goes, well, as a former catcher, you got to trust your instinct because you were a catcher. Your catcher's telling you, go to the replay. And as he said, you don't need a replay. Use your eyes, for God's sakes. Your catcher is telling you to do it. And what's the downside? What's the downside of losing a replay? Nothing. There's no penalty. So what did you have to lose? I didn't understand it. I thought he made every move he made that night. I said he's going to do it. He did it, and I go, it's going to blow up on him, and it did. Even to the point when we replaced Frazier at second base, and it put in a pinch run. He gets picked off at second base. You go, what the heck are you doing, for goodness sakes? And there was an outcry afterwards. I listened to the fan afterwards, and WFAN, and people were going crazy. Well, so I felt the same way, but it was a culmination of years of frustration because you'll see him replace somebody and you go, I'm not sure why he's doing it other than the book tells him in the seventh inning, I bring in a guy, and the eighth inning, I bring in another setup guy, and the ninth they do this. You go, well, wait a second, this guy's cruising. Nobody can hit him. He's at 70 pitches. I mean, and Sabathia was at 77 that night. I didn't get it, but what you hear for people calling for his firing is that years of frustration of, we need to be better than this. We have a team we think is pretty good, and you stood in their way, but you've been doing that for a long time. That's their feeling. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong, but I kind of lean in that direction. I think Terry Francona would have done very differently. Joe Madden would have done it very differently. I thought he got caught unprepared, and if you're a manager, you can't do that. And I've gone on a long time about this, guys, but I'll tell you one other thing. I was at the seventh game of the 2003 playoff series with the Red Sox and the Yankees. You might remember it's the one where the home run was sitting there, I think the 11th or 12th inning by Booney at third base, and the Yankees win for Wakefield. But in that game, Martinez was pitching and he was running out of gas, and they had a lefty in the bullpen. Grady Little went out to talk to him, and Martinez talked him into leaving him in the game, and he did, and it was a mistake, and the Yankees ended up tying it and winning it. And afterwards, the Boston Globe had written, Grady Little's gone. And I thought, why is he gone? I mean, he's a pretty decent manager. And they said he gets paid to make the tough decisions. You don't tell your pitcher to tell me what to do. You make that decision. That's why you're getting paid the big bucks. And here, Girardi's getting paid the big bucks to make those decisions. I mean, here's the catcher telling him you got to do something, and you should know right off the bat that's what you have to do. You at least have to appeal it because it's a big deal. I'd appeal it, and he didn't. And I thought, you also. You overmanaged in that game, but you've done that again and again. You have to make the big decisions and the right decisions, and he made a lot of wrong ones in a big game. That game in and of itself, guys, that's not the reason you fire somebody like that. And he may not be. They may save his job here tomorrow night. But as a diehard Yankee fan who's watched him for a long time, I'm not a big supporter because I do think he overmanages, and I think sometimes he gets in the way of a team that's pretty good.
Oh, it's too bad you didn't have anything to say about the Yankees.
Yeah, I know. We got the clock here. We have a 5-minute shot clock here. You just extended it by about 3 minutes.
I love it.
That's the end of my sermon.
I feel like I'm one of the hosts on the fan going, okay, caller, okay, caller.
Yeah, that's right.
You get it,
Could we cut him off, please?
Yeah.
Could we please just hang up? Thanks. That's Clark from New York. Thank you very much. Call next year, would you please?
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks so much, Clark. You take care.
Thanks, Clark.
Yeah, no more Yankees questions. Thank you.
Clark Judge talking to us today. Yeah, really had nothing to add to that.
I was going to say, we found a diehard Yankee fan there
After I said,
hiding in football talk.
I like Joe Girardi. Maybe he should keep his job. What?
What? Did we just become best friends? Yep.